All right, let's dive right in and decode CPT 99483. Welcome back. Today we are tackling a code that is absolutely high value, but let's be real, undeniably high risk: cognitive assessment and care planning. If you're a healthcare provider or a medical coder, you already know that documenting cognitive decline is basically a giant puzzle. But billing for it, that shouldn't be a guessing game. In this explainer, we're going to break down the exact, down-to-the-letter requirements of CPT 99483. We want to make sure your clinical documentation is completely audit-proof while securing you the appropriate reimbursement for the intense time and expertise this service actually demands.
So, here's our blueprint for today. We'll start by decoding CPT 99483, then we'll look at the independent historian rule, dive into the 10 mandatory clinical elements, go over AWV and co-billing rules, and finally, we'll wrap up with the top audit red flags.
Okay, Part 1. Decoding CPT code 99483.
The scope of this code is actually pretty fascinating. Look, this is not your standard EM office visit. This code is explicitly carved out for a comprehensive evaluation of a patient, new or existing, who is showing signs of cognitive impairment. The whole goal here is to establish or confirm a diagnosis. Think Alzheimer's disease, vascular dementia, or mild cognitive impairment. And then, you've got to create a formal, actionable care plan. It really requires a deep dive into the medical and psychosocial factors that could be driving up the patient's morbidity.
And because it's such a heavy lift, it demands serious time and brain power. We're talking typically 50 to 60 minutes of total time spent on the exact date of the encounter. But wait, time alone won't cut it. It also comes with a mandatory baseline. You must hit moderate or high medical decision-making complexity. You're juggling complex chronic conditions, nasty potential medication interactions, and major patient risks, so that firmly plants this in the moderate to high MDM tier for sure.
Moving on to Part 2, the independent historian rule.
Now, the code descriptor specifically mandates the presence of an independent historian. You might be wondering why. Well, think about it. A patient exhibiting cognitive impairment often just can't provide a complete or reliable medical history on their own, right? So if the patient can't reliably communicate their symptoms, who exactly needs to be in the room to fulfill this mandatory requirement?
Usually this independent historian is a caregiver, a spouse, a parent, or another family member. And listen to me on this one. The presence and documentation of this person is absolutely non-negotiable if you want to build a service. You literally have to document in your note exactly who provided the supplemental history and what their relationship is to the patient. If you do a whole hour-long assessment but rely solely on a severely impaired patient's fragmented history without an independent historian, bam, the claim is instantly invalid. No way around it.
All right, Part 3. This is the big one: the 10 mandatory clinical elements.
So here's the absolute crucial point. This isn't a buffet where you just pick 5 or 6 things that sound good. All 10, yes, all 10 of these clinical components must be present in the medical record to support reporting CPT 99483. Picture this. An auditor reviews your chart, and you've beautifully documented 9 elements, but you skip the 10th. What happens? You lose the entire claim, the whole shebang. So let's walk through exactly what these 10 elements are.
Let's take a look at the exact requirements straight from the CPT manual. Number 1, a cognition-focused evaluation. That means a pertinent history and physical exam. Number 2, medical decision-making of moderate or high complexity, just like we talked about a minute ago. And number 3, a functional assessment of both basic and instrumental activities of daily living, your ADLs and IADLs, and that includes checking the patient's decision-making capacity. Are they able to dress themselves? Can they safely manage their own bank accounts? You have got to document all of this.
Okay, let's keep building on this. Element 4 requires staging the dementia using validated instruments. Think tools like the FAST, the Functional Assessment Staging Test, or the CDR, the Clinical Dementia Rating. Element 5 is a strict, no-nonsense medication reconciliation. You're specifically hunting for high-risk meds or psychoactive drugs that might actually be making the cognitive decline worse. Then, Element 6 requires you to evaluate neuropsychiatric and behavioral symptoms, things like depression or anxiety, using standardized screening tools. And Element 7? This one is huge. You must conduct a safety evaluation. You have to specifically address the safety of their home environment and whether or not they can safely get behind the wheel of a car.
Bringing it home with the final 3. Element 8 is all about the caregiver. You need to identify their needs, assess their knowledge, check their support systems, and frankly, figure out their willingness to actually take on these caregiving tasks. Element 9 involves developing,
updating, or reviewing an advanced care plan. And finally, element 10. This is the physical creation of a written, multidimensional care plan that covers everything we just went over. And you can't just write it and file it away. It has to be delivered to the patient and the caregiver, complete with initial education and support. Remember the golden rule. If it's not written and delivered, it didn't happen.
Part 4. AWV and co-billing rules. So, when you're conducting a Medicare annual wellness visit, you know you're already required to screen for cognitive impairment, right? But what if that screening uncovers a serious problem? Well, you've got two paths here. You can either schedule a dedicated separate visit for a later date to run the full $99,483 evaluation, or you can co-bill on the exact same day. If you go with the same day option, you absolutely must append modifier 25 to the AWV claim. That tells them the cognitive assessment and care planning was a significant, separately identifiable service from the standard wellness visit. Your documentation has to clearly split the difference between the work done for the AWV and the intense, hour-long work done for the $99,483.
Now, when it comes to frequency limits, just lock the number 180 into your brain. According to CPT guidelines, a single physician or qualified healthcare professional shouldn't report $99,483 more than once every 180 days. Normally, you're doing this about once a year. The only real exception to billing it before that 180-day mark is if the patient's disease has progressed so significantly that it warrants a completely revised formal care plan.
And finally, Part 5. Top audit red flags.
Let's take a hard look at your biggest vulnerabilities here. Red flag number 1, missing even a single one of those 10 elements we discussed. Your best guardrail? Build a hard stop template checklist right into your EHR. Red flag number 2, forgetting the independent historian. Simply put, always note the caregiver or family member's presence by name. Red flag 3, auto-building the code just because you spent 60 minutes talking to a dementia patient, but failing to actually generate that written care plan. The plan is literally the product you're billing for. And last but not least, unbundling routine E&M visits improperly. If you're doing this on the same day as another visit, you have to ensure your modifier 25 is totally bulletproof and supported by distinctly separate documentation.
Master all these elements, and you ensure your patients get the deep, comprehensive care they deserve while keeping your practice completely compliant and out of the auditor's crosshairs. But seriously, take a second and ask yourself, is your current EHR setup actually helping you capture all 10 of these elements, or is it setting you up to fail an audit? Go check those templates today. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Decode Healthcare with Harshal.